Hello there. Welcome to Whispers.exe, where the silence watches back. The following story is a work of fiction created for atmospheric and entertainment purposes. Before the shadows whisper your name, hit that subscribe button. With that being said, get comfortable, close your eyes, and let the dark settle in. It begins like most things do, quiet, unnoticed, and far too late to stop. Tonight's story is They Stayed Until Morning. It was the stillness that caught them off guard. Not the grandeur of the house, not the humid breath of Louisiana pressing down on their shoulders as they unloaded their camera gear, not even the rows of moss draped oaks lining the front approach like silent sentries. No, it was the silence. Not a single cicada. No breeze in the leaves. Even the river nearby, a wide, slow moving creature, made no sound as it curled through the trees behind the house. There were 5 of them, though it's easier to forget their names now. One held the camera, another monitored audio, a third, soft spoken and tall, handled the research. The fourth was a local brought in to lend credibility, and the last, the one who spoke most often, was the host. He liked to wear dark clothes and whisper just above the mic's range as if his voice belonged to the place they were filming. Oak Alley Plantation didn't typically allow overnight guests. It was too old, they said, too delicate, but something in their pitch must have swayed the foundation's board, or perhaps it was the donation that did it. Either way, the crew found themselves inside just before sunset, the doors locked behind them with an antique iron key. The plan was simple: a series of interviews on the veranda, a walkthrough of the main rooms, camera light fixed to a gimbal, and then, after midnight, the seance. They didn't actually believe in anything. They said that part quietly, off camera, as they rolled sleeping bags into the corner of the parlor. But belief wasn't the point. Atmosphere was. People watched not to see ghosts, but to imagine what it would feel like if they did. And Oak Alley was perfect for that. Its wide halls, its spiral staircases, the way the wallpaper peeled in perfect curls behind the bed frames, everything about it whispered a kind of polite decay. At first, the shoot went smoothly. The audio was clear. The footage was crisp. The local guide told stories about slave cabins and drowned brides and a mirror that refused to show reflections after sundown. They all laughed quietly as they packed up the lights, stepping over an antique rug that smelled faintly of lavender and ash. Then the power flickered, just once, long enough for the lights to blink and the hallway beyond the parlor to go darker than it should have. No one said anything. The host made a joke about the spirits finding the dimmer switch. And then, after a few more test shots and some B-roll of the empty staircase, they each found a place to settle for the night. The house didn't sleep, but it pretended to. The air inside felt too thick, too held in. It was like stepping into a room that had just been argued in. A tension still clinging to the drapes, invisible and raw. Somewhere around 11:30, one of them woke up gasping. He was certain he'd heard someone whisper his name, but when he sat up, everyone else was asleep, or at least pretending to be. He walked into the hallway, the same hallway where the light had flickered earlier. It looked different in the dark, not just darker, but longer, wider, as if the house had taken a breath and shifted its ribs while they weren't looking. He turned back into the parlor. Except it wasn't the parlor. It was the dining room now. The long table stretched in front of him, the place settings covered in dust. Candles stood melted into their holders, and at the far end of the room, someone sat. They didn't move, didn't look up, but he could see the outline of a dress, wide at the bottom, fitted at the waist, and though her face was turned away, he could see the curve of her jaw, the side of her neck, the unmoving fall of her black hair. He blinked, and she was gone. He told himself he was dreaming, that this was the first night effect, sleep paralysis, maybe. The air was cold now, much colder than before. He returned to his sleeping bag and pulled it over his head. And for a while, he lay there, pretending the sound of footsteps upstairs wasn't real. By midnight, the house had changed, not visibly, not entirely, but something subtle had shifted. The doors no longer opened the way they had earlier. Some refused to move at all. Others swung too freely, as if the hinges had been oiled in the dark, and the windows no longer showed the oaks outside. Just mist, a slow, undulating whiteness pressing against the glass. One of the crew members went looking for the bathroom. She never made it back. When the others realized she was missing, they split up, called her name down the halls. But each of them heard different things. One swore he heard her giggling upstairs. Another said she was calling from the cellar. A third found the door to the pantry wide open, even though they'd locked it earlier, and said he saw her shoes there. Just the shoes, facing the wall. They gathered in the foyer arguing. It felt wrong to split up again, but they didn't want to wait either. The audio tech suggested checking the cameras. The footage might show where she went. But when they turned on the monitor, the footage was strange, disjointed. The timestamp jumped around. At one point, the screen showed all five asleep on the floor, and then just for a frame, it showed them standing, all five, in a line, facing the same corner of the room. No one remembered doing that. They turned off the monitor, and then the knocking started. Soft at first, from upstairs, then from the wall beside them, then from under the floor. The lights flickered again, and for a moment the host swore he saw someone at the top of the stairs, not standing, hanging. But when he looked again, there was nothing there, just the sway of the chandelier. Time blurred after that. One of them tried the front door. The iron key turned, but the lock refused to open. Another screamed. He said he saw something in the mirror, something that looked like him, but older, mouth open, eyes black. The air grew colder, the kind of cold that settled into bone. One by one, they stopped speaking. The words wouldn't come out right. Their voices echoed too much, even in small rooms, even in whispers. And sometimes they heard themselves answer back. Not echoes, answers. Eventually, they stopped looking for the girl, not because they gave up, but because something else took priority, something upstairs. They all felt it, a weight, a pressure in the chest, like being held underwater, like something old and patient pressing its hand against them. They moved into the cellar, not by choice. None of them remembered walking there, but suddenly they were inside, and the door above them was closed. They tried the light, it flickered, buzzed, but stayed on, and they saw each other's faces then, all of them pale, eyes red, shivering. The girl was there too, sitting in the corner, staring at the dirt floor. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. Someone touched her shoulder, and she screamed. Not loudly, not fully, just a whisper of a sound, but it echoed through the cellar like a scream through stone. They stayed like that for hours or minutes. It was impossible to tell. The air was too still, too tight. And when the door finally opened, when sunlight filtered in through the cracked frame, none of them moved. Not at first. Not until the staff called down, their voices normal, friendly, as if nothing had happened. When the crew emerged, they looked different, smaller somehow, drained. Their cameras were still recording, the lights were still on, but the footage, all of it, was unusable. The files played static, then silence, and then the sound of breathing. Just breathing. None of them spoke on the ride back. None of them slept for weeks. They refused interviews, deleted the social pages, refused to work on the project again. The girl moved away, far away. She never said where, only that she needed to be closer to mountains. And the host, the one who liked to whisper, was never seen on camera again. If you ask them what happened, they won't tell you. They can't. But sometimes, in the stillness between sleep and waking, they feel it again. The weight, the breath behind their ear, the whisper that speaks not in words, but in want, and always, always from above, as if the house is still waiting, watching, wanting them back. They stayed until morning, but part of them never left. Sometimes, in the dead hours between night and dawn, one of them still dreams of the house, not as it was, but as it had become. Rooms too wide, shadows that didn't belong to anything, the sound of water trickling inside the walls, even though there were no pipes. In those dreams, they are always alone, and yet they hear footsteps behind them, soft, careful, following. One of them, the researcher, tried to write about it. He filled an entire notebook with fragmented memories, symbols he claimed he never learned, sketches of the cellar door with something behind it. But after a month, he stopped, said the act of remembering had teeth, that every time he opened the notebook, he could feel breath against the back of his neck. He burned it in his backyard. but swore days later that he saw one of the pages on his kitchen counter, unburnt. The local, the one brought in to lend credibility, changed her number. She stopped answering emails, moved back to her mother's house. She was found sleepwalking one night, barefoot, 5 miles from town, whispering over and over again, "I locked the door. I swear I locked the door." But it was the host who unraveled the most. At first, he pretended everything was fine. He made a few vague tweets, gave a soft interview with a minor podcast, said the footage was lost due to technical corruption, claimed Oak Alley had been a formative experience. But then he started sleeping with the lights on and mirrors covered. He installed locks on the inside of every door in his apartment, then added more. One night, he called a friend, not from his phone, but from a payphone downtown. Said he couldn't go home, said the air in his apartment had gone still again, like that night, and he could hear something upstairs. There was no upstairs in his apartment. That was the last anyone heard from him. The cameras from that night were stored in a sealed case. The production company didn't want to throw them out, but no one wanted to review them either. They sat on a shelf in a locked office for over a year, untouched, unopened, until one day the office manager found the lock broken, nothing else disturbed, just the camera case open, the lenses pointing up, as if waiting to be held. The footage was gone, not erased, not corrupted, gone. The drives were empty except for a single file, untitled, no extension. When they played it, the screen went black, the audio silent until a voice, one none of them recognized. A woman's voice, calm, even, whispering one sentence, "You came for echoes, but left your names behind." Then static. The file would not delete, not completely. They wiped the drive, reformatted it, but when they plugged it back in, it was there again. The building is vacant now. No one rents the space. It's listed online as under renovation, though no work has been done in months. Some say they've seen lights on at night, a flicker of motion in the upper windows, a woman's silhouette unmoving, facing the glass. The production was never released. No credits rolled, no documentary aired, just silence and the long, quiet echo of a story that almost was. But Oak Alley remains. It's still there. Visitors walk the grounds during the day, take photos, marvel at the trees. They talk about the beauty, the architecture, the sorrow in the walls, but no one stays past sunset. Not anymore. Not since that night. Not since the house breathed deep and remembered how to keep what it touched. Sometimes the staff find the cellar door ajar, even though it's supposed to be locked. They close it, every time. But in the morning, it's open again, just a few inches, as if inviting something back in, or letting something out. They stopped asking questions. They don't talk about the girl who wouldn't speak, or the man who forgot his own reflection, or the voice that whispered secrets in a language no one taught them. Instead, they let the house sleep, let it hum quietly to itself in the dark. And every now and then, someone will pause at the front gates, camera in hand, documentary dreams in their eyes, and ask, "Do you think they'd let us spend the night?" The staff always say no, always, but there's a moment, a breath, where they don't answer right away, as if something upstairs is listening, waiting. Because once you enter Oak Alley, even just for a night, a part of you stays, even if you leave, even if you forget, even if you run, there is something in the walls that does not lose track of what it claims. And should you return, even by accident, even in a dream, you may find the door open, the air still, the mirror watching, and the house smiling. Because it remembers. It always remembers. And it knows how to wait. There's something about the way the house watches. Not with eyes, not with movement, but with stillness. The kind that makes your lungs feel too loud in your chest. The kind that draws your heartbeat down into your stomach, into the floorboards, into something beneath. Years have passed. The crew scattered. Their names blurred, forgotten by most, but not by the house. It waits in the way only old things can, with patience older than language, older than stories. Sometimes the wind on the property moves strangely. Visitors say it carries voices, not words, just the rhythm of breath through clenched teeth. Sometimes sharp like a whisper through a wall. Other times long, drawn out as though something just behind you is exhaling, slow and satisfied. The guests don't talk about it, they feel it in their shoulders, their throats, their teeth. One woman collapsed on the main staircase. She said she couldn't move her legs, that something was holding them down. The doctors found nothing wrong. No reason for her to be paralyzed from the knees down. She recovered, eventually. But when she returned home, she removed every mirror from her house, covered every window with thick black cloth. She said she saw something moving behind her reflection. It wore her face. But the mouth kept smiling, even after she turned away. She had never been part of the crew, just a visitor, just a woman who'd paused a moment too long in the wrong room. The stories spread in quiet ways, whispers among local staff, a tour guide who refused to go upstairs anymore, a gardener who left the gates unlocked one night and returned the next morning to find all the chairs in the dining room turned inward, as if something had hosted a meal. But the plates were clean, the floor undisturbed, only the faint smell of ash and old lavender. That scent never leaves. It clings to fabric, to fingertips, sometimes to memory. A boy, no older than 9, visited with his family. He wandered off, was missing for nearly 2 hours. When they found him, he was in the wine cellar, staring at the wall. He wouldn't speak, not for a week. And when he finally did, all he said was, "She showed me her teeth." He never said who she was. They tried to ask. He just shook his head and began to hum, a song no one recognized. But the tune, one of the old staff said it was familiar. She'd heard it once, decades ago, from her grandmother. A lullaby used to hush babies when the river swelled high and black with rain. But it was always sung off key, on purpose, to keep things from following the melody back home. Music has never sounded right in the house, not recorded, not live. It always wavers, like something else is trying to sing along, but just behind, just a half step wrong. They banned music after that. No speakers, no humming, no singing. And still, sometimes at night you can hear it from the cellar, that soft, off-tune lullaby, drifting up the stairs, filling the empty rooms. One of the tour guides once tried to follow it. She brought a flashlight. She left the door open behind her, but she didn't come back. They found her later in the library, face pale, hands folded in her lap. She was humming, but her eyes were closed, tightly, as if sewn shut. When they finally coaxed her awake, she spoke only one thing. Over and over again, he told me I was too loud. There was no one else in the house. No other tours had come through. No men among the staff that night. But in the dust on the table beside her, there were fingerprints, wide, long, pressed deep, as if from a hand that didn't quite belong. The staff cleaned them quickly, didn't report the incident. They said she must have fallen asleep and dreamed it all. But no one goes into the library now. The door is kept locked, the windows boarded. Still, at dusk, if you stand just outside it, you might hear pages turning, slowly, as if someone is reading but never finishing the book. There are no books left in the library. They were removed after she was found. The shelves are empty. But the sound remains. The air inside Oak Alley is never still. Not completely. It shifts. It rearranges itself. Sometimes it grows cold for no reason. Sometimes you feel a breeze when there is no open window. Sometimes you smell dirt or iron or salt. Sometimes you wake up and your hands are shaking because they've been holding something in your sleep and you don't know what. The woman from the crew, the one who'd vanished and reappeared in the cellar, never gave another interview, but she kept a journal, a thick one. The last few pages are smudged, water damaged, unreadable. But the last clear entry reads, "I saw us again, standing in that room, but it wasn't me. We looked the same, but wrong. Too still, too quiet, like they were waiting for us to turn around, but we never did." Below that, scratched faintly into the margin, are 4 words, "I think we died there." But they hadn't. They came back. They walked away. Didn't they? And yet, not one of them returned to film. Not one touched a camera again. Not one slept through the night without a light on. And none of them ever found each other again. Not truly. Emails went unanswered. Phones rang and rang. The ones who did respond spoke carefully, briefly, as if something might be listening through the wires. One of them said they saw the house once. Not Oak Alley, Not exactly, but a house that looked like it. In a dream, in another country, thousands of miles away, same stairs, same doors, same chandelier, same voice behind the walls, whispering the same sentence over and over. You already came, you just don't remember. He woke up shaking. His pillow was soaked. His feet were dirty. When he looked at his phone, the camera app had been running all night, recording nothing, just blackness, except at the 39-minute mark. A frame, just one, of a cellar door, open, a hand on the frame. Not his. He deleted the footage, factory reset the phone, threw it away, but every time he logs into a new device, the app is there, already downloaded, already installed. It doesn't have a name, just an icon, a silhouette of a house. And when he tries to delete it, it asks him, "Are you sure they're almost home?" He no longer uses phones or computers. He writes letters, if he writes at all, longhand, on yellow paper, the kind that doesn't hum or glow. But the house finds ways, it always finds ways, because it isn't just a place, it isn't just brick and wood and memory. It is a shape, an idea, a hunger that learned to speak through doors and walls and dreams. It waits, patient, polite, always listening, always smiling. And when the silence stretches long enough, when your thoughts grow still, when your name echoes just once faintly in the space behind you, you'll know. It's found you again. Not to harm you. Not at first. It never rushes. That's not its way. It learns your shape, your breath, the rhythm of your steps in the dark. It follows, it listens, and when the time is right, it reminds you that you were there, that you stayed, that you listened too long. It begins with little things, familiar shadows in unfamiliar places, a door that won't open even though it has no lock, the sound of someone pacing in the hallway when you live alone. Then come the voices, not screaming, never screaming, only murmurs, your name, spoken as though through damp earth, and sometimes laughter, low, breathless, as though someone has found something terribly funny just outside your reach. One of the crew tried to drown it out. Noise machines, constant TV. He even left the radio on in every room. But silence always found the cracks. It seeped in during blinks, in the moments between words. It followed him into his sleep and whispered behind his eyes. He wrote letters to himself, reminders. This is your home. This is your name. This is your body. But over time, the handwriting changed, became sharper, less fluid, and some letters weren't in any language he knew. Eventually, he stopped writing, stopped speaking. He just sat in the center of his living room for hours at a time, waiting, listening, until one day he left his apartment, barefoot, eyes closed. He walked 20 blocks, never opening them. He was found standing in front of a condemned building, smiling. When asked where he was going, he said, "Home." He was never seen again. They searched the building. It was empty, dust-covered, the floors too weak to walk on, but inside, in the back, was a door. Small, too small, as if made for something else. It was locked, but there were fingerprints on the handle, and beside it, etched into the wall, were 5 names. The crew, one scratched out, one fading, one missing letters, 2 clear. No one claimed responsibility. No one could explain how they got there. The building was torn down months later, but the door, it never collapsed, not even when the roof gave in. It simply stood, leaning slightly, surrounded by rubble, waiting. Someone painted over it, but the paint peeled. No matter how many layers, the name at the top always returned, the hosts. There are stories now, urban legends. They circulate among those who film things they shouldn't, among paranormal forums and late-night call-in shows. They speak in code, the house with no exit, the staircase that grows, the room that breathes. Those who know don't speak openly. They say the more you name it, the more it knows you, the closer it comes. But still, some seek it. Not the house itself, that would be too obvious, too easy, but echoes of it, places like it, moments shaped the same way. A hotel in New Mexico where no one stays past the 3rd floor, a chapel in Eastern Europe with no doors, only windows, all sealed, a rest stop in the Midwest where mirrors always reflect someone else's eyes. They think they're separate places, different hauntings, different rules. But those who've truly seen behind the walls know better. It's all the same thing, one shape, one mouth, one endless invitation. The house isn't bound to wood. It's not nailed in place. It moves, it remembers, it builds itself in the quiet between stories. And if you listen too long, if you dream too deep, you'll feel the floor shift beneath your bed, and you'll smell lavender and something else. Ash, maybe? And you'll know. You're inside again. Even if your eyes are open, even if it's a different place, even if it doesn't look the same, you'll recognize the silence, the breath behind the walls, the door you never noticed before. And once you do, it's already too late. One of the crew, the last to hold out, kept a dream journal. She believed she could map the house from memory, every stair, every door. She drew them with charcoal, marked symbols she claimed were hidden in the wallpaper. Some matching symbols found later in the cellar stonework, old carved into the foundation. She traced them back to nowhere. No culture, no language, just shape. Repeating, cycling, fracturing, like a mouth opening slowly. She disappeared last winter. Left a voicemail for a colleague. 12 seconds of silence, and then softly, the sound of pages turning. They found her apartment undisturbed. Coffee still warm, charcoal still on the desk. But every page of her journal was blank, clean. No marks, no signs it had ever been written in. Only a faint scent lingering near the spine of the book. Familiar, a mix of soil, salt, and lavender. People don't visit Oak Alley at night anymore, not even staff. The doors are sealed at dusk, motion lights installed on every floor. They flicker at 2:17 a.m. every morning, even when there's no power. Cameras pointed at the staircase drain their batteries within seconds, every time. No footage, only humming, a low, vibrating tone that grows louder the longer you listen. A group of researchers once tried to analyze the hum. They claimed it matched frequencies used in ancient burial rites. Others said it resembled the human voice stretched beyond recognition, a song with no melody, a sentence with no words. They withdrew the paper. One of them went missing. The others refused to speak publicly. The Foundation insists nothing is wrong, that the house is safe, that the past is the past. But occasionally, someone stands at the gate too long, looking up at the windows, eyes squinting, trying to place something in the reflection. If you ask them what they see, they hesitate. A long silence. Then, just someone standing there. But there is no one inside. The house is empty. Always empty. Except when it isn't. And if you ever walk by it at night and you feel the air change, feel something settle just behind your ribs, a presence, quiet and cold, pressing down. Keep walking. Don't turn. Don't look at the windows. Don't listen for footsteps, because that's when it notices you. And once it does, you've already been inside. And part of you still is. You'll feel it most in quiet places. Elevators that stop between floors, empty hallways that echo too soon, closets where the air feels heavier than it should, moments when your reflection blinks a fraction late, when the phone rings and no one speaks, when the lights flicker and you feel watched. Just for a breath, just long enough to make you wonder. That's how it starts again. Not with thunder or screams, but with stillness, with silence so deep it becomes a shape, a weight. And if you speak into it, if you say the wrong name or ask the wrong question, something answers. Not always with words, sometimes with a shadow that stretches too far. A draft from a door that wasn't there a moment ago, sometimes with a dream. That's the worst of it, the dreams. They don't feel like dreams. There's no blur around the edges, no strange logic or sudden shifts. Everything makes sense. The house is there, exactly as it was, even if you've never been. You know where to go. You know which floorboard creaks. You know which window never opens. You know not to look in the third mirror from the right. But sometimes you do. Sometimes it makes you. And that's when you see her, the woman, the one who never moves quite right. She's never in focus, but you feel her watching. You feel her teeth behind the smile and her voice. It's like water dripping through bone. You wake up after that, not screaming, not gasping, just awake and cold. And sometimes your feet are dirty. That's the thing they never said, the ones who made it out. The ones who whispered their stories and then went silent. They never said what it felt like. To be in a place that remembers you, not with fondness, but with hunger. A place that knows your weight on its stairs, your breath against its glass, your voice in the dark. And once it knows you, it waits. Time doesn't matter, distance doesn't matter. It's always waiting for the moment when you slip, when you forget to check the lock, when you leave the closet door cracked, when you stare too long into the static of a dead channel. Uh, it only needs a second, a breath, a name spoken in passing, and it's there again. You won't see it right away. You'll just feel off. You'll misplace things you swore you never touched. Keys on the wrong hook, lights on, you know you turned off, a door open when you were sure it was closed. Then come the echoes. Your voice, repeated a second too late. Footsteps on the stairs when no one else is home. A cough from the next room. You'll go to check, but the room is always empty, always just slightly colder than it should be. You'll start keeping lights on, just in case, just for comfort. But light doesn't keep it out. It was never afraid of the dark. It made the dark. And in time, you'll come to understand something terrifyingly simple. It doesn't want to hurt you. Not like the stories say. It doesn't chase. It doesn't scream. It doesn't even move. It waits. It lets you come to it because that's how it wins. Not by terror, but by trust, by recognition, by the moment you stop pretending it was all in your head. That moment, that quiet moment when you sit up in bed, feel the cold against your spine, and say aloud, I remember this. That's when it opens the door. Not with creaks or gusts of wind, just a click, barely audible, but enough. And then it's inside. Wherever it is now, whether it's still standing at Oak Alley or crumbled to dust somewhere forgotten, it no longer needs walls to find you. It exists in memory, in dreams, in moments of weakness. And it builds itself from your silence, your hesitation, your breath against the mirror when you lean too close. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to. It already knows you. It already found you that night, that one night, when you watched the screen too long, when you listened after the story ended, when you wondered just for a second, what if it's real? That's all it takes. A single wondering. A single question spoken in the quiet after the whisper, and it begins again. You hear a door shut that you didn't open. You wake up with a bruise you can't explain. You look into the mirror and see yourself blinking just a little late. And then you remember the cellar. The feeling of being watched through the floor, the cold that pressed against your lungs, the breathless whisper behind your name. And you know, it's here again, because it never left. It only stepped aside, waited, let you live just long enough to forget the sound of your own footsteps on unfamiliar stairs. And now you're back, even if your body's far away, even if your eyes are open, even if you scream. It hears you. It always hears you. But it never answers the first time or the second. It waits. And when you stop asking, that's when it speaks. And its voice is always your own. Calling from upstairs, calling you by name, calling you home. It doesn't need to say anything more. Not now. Not after all this time. The silence is enough. It always has been. It hums like a thought left unfinished, a memory you're certain isn't yours, a moment you don't remember living, but that remembers you. You stand there, frozen. Not in fear, not entirely, but in recognition, the way a dream feels when it begins to repeat. The way you can walk through the same hallway twice and feel it blink. Because you have walked this before, not just in memory, in shadow, in shape, in echo. You reach for the door again, and it opens, this time without sound, without resistance. But there is no hallway, just stairs, leading down. You hear your breath catch. You feel your skin tighten, because it's not just the cold, it's the certainty that this is where it always ends, that it never really ended at all. You take a step, the wood doesn't creak, the air thickens, the darkness bends around you, welcoming but never warm. The staircase is longer than it should be, impossible, but you don't stop, you descend, and each step feels more like surrender. The light behind you fades, but you don't look back. You can't, not now. There's a rhythm to the dark, a pulse, and it matches your own, too perfectly. You realize then, this place doesn't trap you. It matches you. It learns you. It grows rooms around your regrets. Hangs wallpaper from your unfinished thoughts. And the mirrors reflect not what you see, but what you forget. At the bottom of the stairs, there is a door, wide open. But what waits inside isn't a room, it's a memory, one you never made, but one you've always carried. You step through and you are no longer yourself. Not exactly. Your hands are still yours, but smaller or older. You're not sure. The air smells like cedar and salt and something wet. There are chairs in a circle, 5, empty, facing inward. A candle burns at the center, dripping into a bowl of black water. You don't remember lighting it, but it flickers when you breathe. And then one of the chairs is no longer empty. A figure sits, unmoving, its face is turned just slightly away. You try not to look, but you do. And it's you. Not now, but once, or someday. Your eyes but hollow, your mouth but closed too tight. Hands folded, not resting. Restrained. You blink, and another chair is filled. Then another, and another. 5 now, all of them familiar. Versions of you, shifting in detail. Each one holding something. A camera, a notebook, a key, a shard of mirror. And the 5th? It holds nothing. Its hands are empty. You know it's the one that didn't run, the one that stayed. They don't speak, but they watch. They lean forward in slow unison, and the sound of breath fills the room. Yours, theirs, the house's. They speak, but not in words. Their mouths never open, their voices are thought, feeling, memory reversed. And the message is clear: you were never meant to leave. None of you. You left behind only skin, bone, shell. But the rest never left the cellar. You reach for the candle, your fingers pass through the flame. It doesn't burn, but it marks you. The bowl ripples, and you see it. The house, not just Oak Alley. But every shape it has worn, every room it's built inside the silence of others, every life it's touched and mirrored and worn like clothing, it doesn't exist in one place. It never did. It is a pattern, a rhythm of emptiness, a hunger that waits. And you fed it with fear, with breath, with memory. You fed it the moment you wondered if it could follow, if it could find you again, if it could build itself from your dreams. You made space for it. And now? Now it fills the rest. The figures in the chairs lean back, the flame goes out, the bowl tips, and what spills from it isn't water, it's the dark, not shadow, substance, living, remembering. It moves toward you like smoke beneath a door, fingers without shape, eyes without light. And when it reaches your feet, it doesn't pull, it invites. You kneel. You don't know why. Maybe to listen, maybe because your legs no longer remember how to stand. And in the dark, you hear the door close behind you. Quietly, gently, almost kindly, because it has you now. All of you. And above, somewhere far beyond the staircase and the cellar and the thought that brought you back, the house sighs. A contented sound, a memory satisfied. The walls exhale, the mirrors fog, and somewhere, a new door begins to appear, in a house that never had one before, in a room untouched for years. On a wall that had been solid until now, and someone will see it soon. They'll ask themselves if it was always there. They'll listen to the quiet pressing at the edges of the room. They'll wonder about the cold in their spine, and they'll ask a question, just one, a simple question. What if? And that is all it needs. What if? The silence tilts forward, listening, leaning, opening. The door begins to widen, not outward, not inward, but deeper, as if it always knew how far it needed to go. The person who finds it won't open it right away. They'll circle it, touch it, run their fingers along the grain of old wood that wasn't there yesterday. They'll try to dismiss it, but the room will feel different now. The corners farther, the light duller, the breath in their throat held too long. They'll hear the stories, maybe, the rumors of the crew, the cellar, the way the cameras never stopped recording. Maybe they'll even watch the episode, the one that never aired, that never made it to broadcast, because it doesn't exist, not publicly, but somewhere in a cold folder on an old drive, the footage hums softly at night, waiting to be seen. They'll dream of the oaks, of the porch with its chipped white rails, of the parlor with dustless chairs, of the staircase that never ends. And when they wake, they'll notice a small thing, a reflection that lingers too long, a voice in the hallway when they live alone, the sensation of footsteps behind them that stop every time they do. The door will still be there, growing more familiar, not demanding, just waiting. They'll tell someone, a friend, a sibling, maybe a partner, and the other person will laugh, shrug it off, say they're imagining it. But later, when they look into that room, they'll see the door too, and something behind it will notice, because the house doesn't need to be visited anymore. It learned how to come to you. It learned your shape, your breath. It built its staircase beneath your bed. Every echo of its walls now exists in you. Every whisper, every floorboard, every flickering light, it travels like memory, like hunger, like grief. The original house still stands, yes. Oak Alley, quiet, polished, staring out beneath the weight of time and trees. Tour guides walk its length. Visitors take their photos. No one mentions the cellar. The key was lost, or hidden, or swallowed. But the cold remains just beneath the floor, and sometimes when they close up for the night, they hear something. Chairs shifting, candles snuffed, the distant sound of someone humming. Off key, deliberate, like a voice recalling something long forgotten. They lock the doors, they turn off the lights, and they don't look back. Because once you look, once you acknowledge the shape, once you recognize the rhythm of the dark, it sees you. And if you stand still long enough, if you listen with the wrong kind of silence, you'll hear your name again. Spoken gently, carefully, not to scare, but to invite. You won't remember standing or walking or turning the knob, but the door will be open and you'll be halfway through. The house doesn't keep you by force. That was never the point. It lets you come willingly because it knows. The ones who walk in on their own, those are the ones who never try to leave. And when they gather again in that circle of chairs, in the dark that breathes, in the hum that has no source, they will not speak. They will not move. They will only wait for the next question, for the next name, for the next breath in the quiet. Because the house is not haunted. It is haunting. It is the echo, not the cry, the memory, not the event. It doesn't want you to scream. It wants you to remember. And the longer you live, the more you dream, the more you wonder, the closer it gets, until finally you open a door that was never yours. Take a step you don't remember choosing and realize the truth. You were always walking toward it from the very beginning. It only ever waited for you to arrive. And now that you have, there is no need for locks, no need for light, no need for fear. Only the stillness, the breath, the hush of the floor welcoming you home, and the long, gentle whisper curling from the dark as the last door closes quietly behind you. You stayed until morning, and now you never have to leave.